Terrible news for Bama? Could Kean Sab's injury really hurt Alabama? Let's talk about that and more news. Subscribe to the channel to receive more news. The performance in Knoxville was marked by mistakes, injuries, and a certain frustration that has challenged the recovery capacity of this team led by Kalen DeBoer. However, as a historically resilient program, Alabama remains confident, even with the injuries that have occurred. In Monday's press conference, DeBoer gave worrying updates on some of his key defensive players. Kean Sab's injury, which initially seemed like something he could handle, ended up being more serious than expected. Sab, a crucial player in the Tide's defensive scheme, tried to return to the field in the second half, but was visibly affected, with pain in his side early in the third quarter. He is now expected to be out for an indefinite period of time, which puts additional pressure on Bray Hubbard, who will be expected to step into Sab's role. This transition will not be easy, but Alabama's talent development has always been one of its greatest strengths. Hubbard will have to rise to the occasion. In addition to Sab, Alabama also suffered 3 other significant defensive losses in the matchup against the Volunteers. Red Morgan left the game with a hamstring injury after a big defensive play. While it initially appeared to be a precautionary measure, his prolonged absence for the remainder of the game had fans on edge. Morgan has been a vital piece of Alabama's defense, and his presence will be needed in the upcoming battles. Devonta Smith was also a significant loss. After suffering an injury during the first quarter, he was taken to the injury tent and later tried to recover by cycling on the stationary bike. However, Smith was unable to return to the game. His absence exposed a temporary weakness in the team's defensive depth, and his condition will be closely monitored for this weekend's matchup. Sabin Brown, who didn't play much of the game against Tennessee, was also listed with a minor injury, but Kalen DeBoer reassured fans that his condition is not a concern. Brown, Smith, and Morgan are all expected to be ready for the important matchup against the Missouri Tigers, which has now become crucial for Alabama to maintain its hopes of a comeback this season. On the other hand, one injury that could have fans even more concerned was that of quarterback Jalen Milroe. He looked a bit shaken up during the game against Tennessee, but DeBoer was quick to dismiss any speculation of anything serious. He noted that at this stage of the season, it's hard to find players who aren't dealing with some kind of physical injury. However, Milroe is set to lead the Crimson Tide next Saturday as they look for a vital win over Missouri. With the Tide facing injury challenges and trying to find its footing after a tough loss, DeBoer's focus now is on keeping the team together and ready to bounce back. The depth of the roster will be tested in the coming weeks, and that's when elite programs like Alabama often shine. While the loss of Sab is significant, DeBoer has confidence in the rest of his defensive staff, and the return of other injured players should provide a boost for what promises to be a tough battle against Missouri. This is Alabama's time to show its resilience. Injuries are a part of the game, but the Crimson Tide has always been able to adapt and overcome obstacles. Kalen DeBoer knows the journey is long and that every step toward recovery counts. The matchup against Missouri will be a test for the team, not only physically, but also mentally, as they try to reaffirm their presence on the national stage and get back on the winning track. Let's get going! For the first time since 2007, Alabama has suffered 2 losses before the end of October, a sobering sign for a program that has consistently been at the top of its game under Nick Sabin. Now, with Sabin retired and serving as one of the most respected voices in sports media, the former coach offered a rare but thoughtful reflection on the early days of the DeBoer era. During an appearance on the Monday Morning Quarterback Club, Sabin was asked whether DeBoer's Alabama is maintaining the standard of excellence he set during his legendary career. Sabin's response was measured, not critical, but clear about his view of what really matters: commitment to what he calls the standard, not necessarily his own, but the standard the team has built over the years. "I don't think it's my place to judge," Sabin said diplomatically. Rather than point out flaws or draw direct comparisons to his own era, he stressed the importance of each player and coach being at their best and focusing on performing at the level that Alabama, as a program, demands. Sabin certainly recognizes the weight of his own shadow over the team, but his message was clear: the focus must be on how the team, as a collective, can maintain the level of excellence that has been built over the years. Sabin's remarks, while filled with humility, reflect the pressure and expectations surrounding Kalen DeBoer in his first season. Taking over one of the most successful programs in college football history is a monumental task in itself, but doing so after Nick Saban's retirement adds even more weight. DeBoer inherited not only a talented team, but also a fan base and a culture that demands nothing less than victory at all times. So far, DeBoer has had his ups and downs, with 2 losses that have exposed some vulnerabilities within the team. The loss to Vanderbilt and another loss to Tennessee highlighted defensive flaws and the need for tactical adjustments. Despite these setbacks, Alabama still has a potent offense led by Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams that keeps the team competitive. But maintaining the standard means more than just winning games. It means displaying the dominance and consistency that have become synonymous with Alabama under Sabin. The Crimson Tide defense, which was a hallmark of Sabin's reign, has struggled this year, something that DeBoer is still trying to correct. But Sabin's remarks suggest he has faith in DeBoer and his players' ability to adjust course. The standard, as Sabin emphasizes, is something bigger than any individual coach. It's the expectation that Alabama has set and that everyone, from the players to the coaches, is working to maintain. This is a critical time in transition. DeBoer, like Sabin in 2007, is in the process of adapting and implementing his style. Comparisons are inevitable, but Sabin knows better than anyone that building a legacy takes time, patience, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. Alabama, despite its early stumbles, is still in the process of forging a new identity under DeBoer. The coach is aware of the legacy he inherited, but as Sabin wisely stated, the goal is not necessarily to live in the shadow of his predecessor, but rather to ensure that the team's standard remains a non-negotiable priority. With more challenges ahead, DeBoer and Alabama will have the opportunity to show if they can get back on track and close the season on a positive note. For Sabin, what matters is not how the team started, but how they adjust and respond to the challenges that arise throughout the season. Wise words from Coach Sabin. Alabama has 2 losses before the end of October, something that historically would have eliminated any hope of making the college football playoff. However, 2024 marks the first season of the expanded playoff, which now includes 12 teams, which keeps Alabama's hopes, however slim, alive. The loss to Tennessee, a top 10 opponent, and the surprising loss to Vanderbilt have left the Crimson Tide in an uncomfortable position in the hunt for a CFP berth. But as DeBoer and his staff know, the path to the playoff, while difficult, is not impossible. The expanded playoff to 12 teams provides a greater margin of error for teams like Alabama. In previous years, a 2-loss mark in the regular season was enough to seal a team's fate. But with the new format, teams with as few as 3 losses could have a chance to compete. Historically, several 2- or 3-loss teams have finished in the top 12 of the final CFP rankings, and Alabama could follow suit if it can bounce back in time. To do so, the path is clear. Alabama needs to win the rest of its games and, ideally, win the SEC title. The loss to Tennessee may have been a setback, but upcoming games against Missouri and LSU provide the perfect opportunity for the Crimson Tide to make up ground. Both of these matchups are crucial, especially the game against LSU, a top 10 ranked team that could serve as a significant win on DeBoer's resume. In addition, Alabama already has one impressive win under its belt, a win over Georgia, which was ranked the number 1 team in the country at the time. While the Bulldogs are in a strong position, this win strengthens Alabama's case in a playoff scenario later in the season. However, the loss to Vanderbilt remains a blemish on the Crimson Tide's record, and DeBoer knows another loss would completely derail his team's chances. Alabama's biggest hurdle going forward will be finding consistency on both sides of the ball. Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams have been the stars on offense, but Alabama's defense, which has historically been a fortress under Sabin, has struggled in critical moments. Against Tennessee, those defensive flaws were evident again, and the team now needs to adjust quickly, especially on third downs, to ensure they can control the upcoming games. Alabama's path to the college football playoff is still wide open, but the margin for error is slim. Beating Missouri and LSU would be essential to keep its hopes alive, and the rest of the schedule looks more favorable with games against Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. If Alabama can overcome these obstacles, a 10-2 record at the end of the regular season would put DeBoer's team in a good position to crack the top 12 in the final rankings. The CFP expansion comes at an opportune time for teams like Alabama, which in previous years would have been out of contention after 2 losses. The new format offers a second chance, but the Crimson Tide needs to show that it still belongs among the elite of college football. The defense needs to tighten up, the offense needs to keep working, and most importantly, the team needs to rediscover the focus and consistency that defined Alabama for so long. Kalen DeBoer still has the opportunity to make his first season at Alabama a story of resilience. The mission is clear: win what's left and let the CFP committee make the decisions. The Crimson Tide have demonstrated their resilience in previous seasons, and this year could be another example of how Alabama, even in times of trouble, remains a force to be reckoned with in college football. Let's go ahead. What about basketball? Point guard Mark Sears' recognition as one of the preseason's top players solidifies the Crimson Tide's position as a title favorite. After being named to the Associated Press preseason All-American team, Sears has further cemented his status as one of college basketball's biggest stars. With the team ranked number 2 in the AP preseason poll, the highest in program history, Alabama is poised for a historic season. Mark Sears' experience and skill on the court have been instrumental in the program's recent success. After a stellar campaign last season, when he was named to the AP All-America second team, Sears is now receiving even more recognition. His inclusion on the preseason All-American team was no surprise given his impact on the court, averaging an impressive 21.5 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 4.0 assists last season. Additionally, his status as potential SEC Player of the Year underscores how integral he will be to Alabama's ambitions. The Nate Oates-led team already showed its mettle by reaching the program's first Final Four last season, but the expectations are even higher now. With Sears leading the charge and a roster bolstered by experienced transfers and talented freshmen, the Crimson Tide has the potential to go even further than last year's accomplishments. The return of key players, combined with Sears' competitive spirit and leadership, puts Alabama in a realistic position to contend for the school's first national title. Sears' nomination to the AP All-American team confirms the respect and consideration he and Alabama are receiving nationally. Along with the likes of R.J. Davis, Caleb Love, and Cooper Flagg, Sears joins an elite group that defines the college basketball landscape for 2024-25. The presence of high-caliber players on teams like Duke, Kansas, and North Carolina means the competition will be fierce, but Alabama is ready for the challenge. With the start of the season fast approaching, the expectations are clear: Alabama is not only competing to maintain its status as an emerging powerhouse, but to firmly establish itself among the giants of college basketball. Mark Sears' performance will be crucial to achieving these goals, and his leadership on and off the court will be the difference the Crimson Tide needs to turn potential into concrete achievements. What do you think? How will Alabama bounce back? Let us know in the comments.